Good evening and welcome to the Gin and Tonic show on this Friday, the 24th of February 2017. I hope you're all doing well. We'll just wait a few moments for some people to join the show, some viewers, and hopefully some participants. So we'll wait a few moments and then we will get started. I am posting the link to join the actual live Google Hangout discussion into the chat. Please let me know if you are able to join the chat. For those that do wish to, just remember you do require a microphone. You can, of course, enable a webcam or some kind of camera if you have one. If you do want to join the discussion and you want to remain anonymous, then you're more than welcome to just join the Hangout, have some kind of icon, make sure your camera is disabled, or make sure that your camera is just off. Good evening, Lamb of God. Good to see you. And then as long as your camera is off, so it's the top icon where you see the little camera, if I'm looking at it now. Good evening, Abu. How are you, sir? I will wait for you to come up with your audio. I can see you there. I don't hear you at the moment,
Hello.
though. There you go. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Good, good. I don't know if you saw the short video I posted earlier today. Hopefully we will get some Muslim viewers and maybe even one or two participants. I did a short little video, like a 2-minute video on my channel, Speakers Corner UK, where I invited all Muslims to come and join us on the show, to chat if they want to chat, ideally join the Hangout,
Especially
and share their views.
Muslims, if
Sorry,
that
what did you
is
say?
not an oxymoron. Especially homosexual Muslims, if there are such a thing.
Well, I've heard of a few. Again, whether other
I'm sure
Muslims
there
would
are.
consider them Muslims, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I prepared a little bit, actually yesterday, last night, I painstakingly translated a tape recording when they talk about like the fiqh of the punishment for homosexual male sex in and it's by Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen. It's a lecture series where it goes through a book by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah is one of the greatest ulama of all time, and Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen is one of the greatest ulama in our time.
Abu, just for those that might be joining, so maybe some new viewers that haven't come here before, just share whatever you're comfortable sharing in terms of your background, and the fact that you can obviously speak Arabic and understand it fluently, just so people know who you are. I think most people know who I am from Speakers Corner, etc.
Okay, generally, I'm an ex-Muslim. I studied in the Arab world, and I studied in Saudi Arabia, among other places. Yes.
Was there a particular school that you studied under? Because from what I see, and I was just doing some research myself,
yes,
there's 4 main schools of thought.
It was a particular school, but I don't know if I should go into too much detail because...
All right, let me put it this way. Is it one of the 4 main schools of thought?
But do you mean madhab? No, I wasn't studying any particular madhab. I was kind of Salafi.
Okay.
I was mainly following Sheikh al-Albani, who was a guy who lived in the 20th century.
So he was presumably a renowned scholar in Saudi Arabia.
No, he was, I think he was born in Albania, moved to Syria at a young age. He's the greatest scholar in hadith in our time. He also was a teacher at the Medina University. So he lived in Saudi Arabia for a while, but I think he died in Jordan. I'm not sure of that.
Okay, and that was obviously in the 20th century.
But many Muslims think that he is the so-called Mujaddid. There's a hadith that every century there will come a Mujaddid that will revitalize the deen, so to speak. And many people think that he was that guy.
What's the Mujaddid? What's the definition of that, or what is the translation of that?
From the verb jaddada, which means meaning is renewing, right? Like say that it's like you press the bottom FM on the every century God will send a special man that will take back the religion to its original roots, to its true roots, and so on. And one of those guys people think is, for example, this guy Ibn Taymiyyah, that I will read this book that Al-Uthaymin talks about. Ibn Taymiyyah, they thought that he was such a Mujaddid, and the Mujaddid in our time was, or in the last century, they think was Albani. Anyway, I don't think there is such a thing, but I can understand the logic.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. If you want to go ahead, I've also got a few pieces. What I want to make sure is that we accurately represent what the majority, at least of Sunni, if not Shia Muslims, believe around homosexuality. We don't want to mischaracterize it or strawman it. We do want to be accurate with our assessment of what they believe.
This is kind of Sunni school. So it goes through all the different views, even the views that is not considered to be Ahl Sunnah.
Okay, so please go ahead.
General. But maybe should I do that first, or should we do something else first?
No, I think let's get into this, because as people come, and we can move on if necessary. But let's get started with homosexuality, because that's what we were talking about. What are the Muslim views, and then what are our thoughts on that?
Okay, so this is my translation from a tape recording of a lecture series with Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin, who is considered to be one of the greatest ulama in our time. The student that recites from the book recites. The Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah the highest mercy be upon him, said in his book, As-Siyasatu Shar'iyya fi Islahi al-Ra'i wal-Ra'iyya. But when it comes to al-liwat, homosexual/sodomites, so there is among the ulama, the scholars, who say that the punishment for it is the punishment of adultery. And it has been said without it. And the sahih, the correct view, is what the Sahaba, companions of the Prophet, agreed upon / had consensus about, that both of the two ought to be killed, the one above and the one under. Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin interrupts and starts to explain. Good. The madhab that the punishment for homosexual sex is the punishment for adultery, i.e. the Sheikh started explaining that madhab. They said that the punishment for al-luti is like the punishment for adultery, and it was said without it, i.e. it was said that there is ta'zir, deterrent punishment. And I have seen a false / deniable saying / opinion which says it is enough with the natural deterrent. The natural deterrent. It means that on this saying, he will not be punished. The natural deterrent is enough. Because every human being is not deterred by it. Deterred by being excuse my vulgar language here. This is supposed to be a like more academic word, but I couldn't find it. So it's not deterred by being fucked by another male. So it was enough like this, as the same way as the urine do not have a punishment, and alcohol / wine have a punishment, because the alcohol is appealing to the ego, but the urine is not appealing to the ego. So it was enough as a deterrent, the natural deterrent, the natural fitrah. fitra is this, Muslims have this belief that everybody is born with a natural belief and all that they call fitra, from the verb fatara. But this saying / opinion is deniable / false. And so are the one who says that the punishment for it is the punishment for zina / or adultery, or less than it. They are we. This is a weak saying / opinion, because this deed, homosexual sex, is, I seek refuge in Allah from it. Allah has separated it from adultery with his words, and do not come near zina, adultery. Truly it was a fahisha, indecency. A fahisha, indecency, among other indecencies. So it's just one fahisha, one indecency among other indecencies. And he said about this, Lut said to his people, are you committing the fahisha, the indecency? And he proved this with the proof, involvement / indulgence in the fahisha, the indecency. I mean, the greatest fahisha / indecency, the most disgusting. No one has done this before you in all of the worlds. But those who said that the deterrent of the fitrah, that the natural is enough, so this is not true, because there are people who are perverted. I seek refuge in Allah, his fitrah, and his nature. Is the one whose evil deeds appears beautiful to him, so he sees it as good, and Allah misguides whoever he wants and guides whoever he wants. Then truly the Sahaba have more knowledge than us about Allah's Sharia and what is good for Allah's slaves. He, Ibn Taymiyyah, says, they agreed upon, Shaykh al-Islam says, and he is trustworthy when it comes to transmission. They agreed upon that both of the two will be killed, the one on top and the one under. And I hope you understand what that means. Whether they were two immune or not immune. I think this immune here means, I think it means like if there's some guy from another country that got immunity to enter the land, but I'm not 100% sure. The one on top is the one who commits the deed, and the one under is the one who has it done on him. The two are killed, but there must be puberty and sanity. There must be puberty and sanity, and there must be choice also. Yes. So the one who is forced, that it be done to him, and it is proven that he was forced, or there is strong doubt that indicates that he was forced, then the punishment is not executed on him. But can the doer be forced? The audience of students mumbles quietly. Yes. Can the doer be forced? The audience of students mumbles some answers. I say, is it possible that the doer is forced? I don't say that it is rare or not. Yes, I have heard that it can be forced. The doer is forced. The doer. A human said to me that there was a person who wanted him to do it on him. I seek refuge in Allah. And he said that if you do not do it, I will kill you. Subhanallah. But this we ask Allah for afiyah. Mumble something I couldn't hear. The last level. I couldn't hear that from the TV recording. Yes, anyway, the one who is forced, the madhab that sees that the forced one in zina is not forced. Okay, no, he explained this madhab. And they rationalize that from that it is not possible for a male part to erect if forced. It's not possible to have an erection if you're forced. Never. If it is not possible, how can he be forced? But this view is weak, because the human, if he is tested, and I seek refuge in Allah, I ask Allah to protect me and you. Students say, Ameen. If he is tested and everything is made beautiful for him, he may be able to have erection. The Aziz woman, what did she say to Yusuf? The doors are locked, and she said, Hayta lak, now come thou. And she certainly determined to seduce him, and he would have inclined to her had he not seen the proof of his Lord. So proceeds from this that the question when it comes to whether one is forced, so the evidence to the conclusion is that it is not for the doer or the one that is done on punishment. Yes. The student that recites from the book recites. And the Sharia correct is what the Sahaba agreed on, that the two, both of them will be killed, the one on top and the one under, independent if they are two immune individuals or not two immune individuals, because the people of Sunnah reported from Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with both of them, that the Prophet ﷺ said, the one who is found to be doing the deed of Qawm Lut, the tribe of Lut, so kill the doer and the one that it is done to. And Abu Dawood reported that Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with them both, if a man who is not married is seized committing sodomy, he will be stoned to death. And it has been reported that Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with him, similar to that hadith. And the Sahaba did not differ on his death penalty, but they were varied in it, i.e. had no consensus how to kill him. So it was reported from As-Siddiq Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, that he ordered to burn him and on others than him his killing, and on some of them that a wall tipped / dropped over him until he dies under its demolition. And it was said that the two of them be buried alive in a rotting / stinking place until the two of them dies. And one of them they are hoisted, and one of the sayings, that they are hoisted to the highest wall in the village and are thrown of it and followed by stones, as Allah did with Lut's tribe. And this is a riwayah on Ibn Abbas, and the other riwayah said that they are stoned, and on this is most of as-Salaf on this opinion. The most of the Salaf is on this opinion, or was on this opinion. They said that because Allah stoned Lut's tribe and made Sharia to the adulteress similar to the destruction of Lut's tribe, so the two are stoned, whether the two were two free individuals or two owned slaves. One of them is owned slave and the other one free, or one of them is owned slave by the other, if both of them have reached puberty. The Sheikh interrupts. I mean, it cannot be said that if one of them is the other's property, that the owner cannot be stoned, because he, the slave, is ma malakat aymanukum, what your right hand possesses. So we say, like Uthman said to the one that wanted to group two sisters in Wati, and he proved this by that the one that is asking for fatwa, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, then he recites Quran, do you have among those whom your right hand possesses any partners in what we have provided for you, so that you are equal therein and would fear them as you fear one another within a relationship? So Uthman said to him, your camel is among what your right hand possesses. Like your camel is also property. Your property. Does that mean that you can have sex with your camel? And the Sheikh goes on. Yes, I mean, you cannot accept it as general. Yes, good. So Shaykh al-Islam mentioned that several benefits may be, this I couldn't hear, I think he said benefit, maybe some other word, from the punishment of Lut after the taking of their lives. The first, that they are burned, and this was reported from the three caliphs, among them Abu Bakr and Abdullah ibn Zubayr, and I think from Hisham ibn Abdul Malik. This is not what I'm saying. This is what the Sheikh saying. I think from Hisham ibn Abd Malik. And truly ordered to burn him, because the exaggeration in this dissatisfaction of him, because the burning is the worst of all the ways of killing. The killing. And the second, that a wall is tipped on him until he dies. In it, the second is killing. Yes? And then the Sheikh answered a quite non-related question about death penalty. So I skipped that part until he says, and the third, a wall is tipped upon him until he is killed under its demolition. The fourth, they are buried alive in a stinking place until the two are dead. The fifth, they are hoisted to the highest wall in the village and are thrown off it, and are followed by stones, as Allah did with Lut's tribe. And the sixth, they are stoned. And this is what Shaykh al-Islam said, that most of the Salaf were upon, as Allah did with Lut's tribe. So the obvious from the Shaykh's words, may Allah have mercy upon him, that Allah did to Lut's tribe two attributes, the hoisting, then the throwing down, or the stoning only. And on this question the ulama differed. Did Allah hoist the earth / the village under Lut's tribe, then stone them with it, then followed it with stones? Or did Allah send them stones of hard clay without hoisting? So in the noble Qur'an there is nothing that indicates that Allah hoisted the earth / village, then inverted it, but we sent on them stones of hard clay. So the problem is left on his words. We made the highest of it the lowest of it, of the village or the earth. The ones who think that Allah did not hoist this earth, truly he stoned it with stones of clay. It was demolished. So the highest of it became lowest of it. It became highest on the earth from demolition. I don't agree with this thing, but anyway. And we cannot make sure anything without one set issue. So when it was hoisted, it was dropped on its head. So is there any benefit to stone it after that? Yes. What is the benefit? Students say. Exaggeration of dissatisfaction and punishment. Uthaymeen, no, they are dead. They may be dead before it reaches reaches the earth. So the obvious, and Allah knows best, if it does not come as sahih from the Prophet ﷺ that this village was hoisted, that it was not, then it was not hoisted. But if there is sahih from an infallible source, so then we can only accept it and submit. Yes, complete it, and if there is any, and if any of the two have not reached puberty, so they are punished with what is under death penalty, and no one but adult can be stoned. Uthaymeen interrupts. And the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, do not mention the insane, but he is like the small kid, with no doubt. If any of the two are insane, so truly he is not to be stoned. And is he punished or not? Look into it. His punishment can be other than beating. His punishment can be imprisonment, like the punishment of the insane person that does this, because he's not really accountable. But they shouldn't beat him, but you should imprison him. His punishment can be imprisonment, because the insane do not benefit from beating, but we benefit from his imprisonment to refrain from his evil. The students start to ask questions. We skip that until, and now this is just the end. Building upon what came before on the issue of the punishment of liwat, homosexuals, and that it is obligatory to kill the doer and the one that it is done to. One condition that they have reached puberty, are sane, are true choosers, are capable of choice, not forced, etc. And that we do not need to ask about chastity or the absence of it. I say, building upon this and building upon what Allah gave as blessings to His servants in these late centuries, we have to be on our strong guards against this fahisha, this indecency. And that is because of the protection of our youth, a complete protection, and that we look who is their companions and who is going out with them and who comes back with them, and that we do not enable admixture, like mixture the small boys with who is above them amongst adolescents and above adolescents, because the issue is dangerous, and the devil runs with Bani Adam as the blood runs with them in their veins. And maybe a person says, I am far away from this, and this is from the foolish character, but the devil does not leave him alone until he has made beautiful this fahisha, this indecency, and I seek refuge in Allah from it. Some of you, or most of you, may not have children, like they are students, in this age, but warn your brothers, warn them to leave their children to go wherever they want and come as they please, because this is a very dangerous. Okay, finished.
Cool, thank you very much. That was quite an in-depth recitation. So if I understand you correctly, you've sort of not translated, what's the word? You've sort of dictated or written out some of this audio that was played.
I have a tape recording. This is a tape recording of a longer book. And the book is called, or there's a book written by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah called السياسة الشرعية في إصلاح الراعي والراعية. And then Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen goes through this book with his students. So you have a reciter that recites those words, and then Al-Uthaymeen explains this. So
can you just type into the main chat the Sheikh's full name spelled out, and maybe that book, so that people who are interested.
Ibn Salih Al-Uthaymeen. I can give you a link to the
copy and paste the link into the main chat for the viewers.
I do it on with the Abu Molhid name.
So let me just check in. So obviously, that was quite an in-depth recitation. You mentioned a few things there, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit your understanding of it. One, there was a natural punishment. Now, is the natural punishment what will happen to them when they die and are judged by Allah?
Natural punishment means that natural deterrent means that you are naturally disgusted by it. You see what I'm saying?
But that's obviously not the people that are engaged in that. Those are other people who...
That's what he's saying also. This is a weak opinion because there are people that are not disgusting that. So that's what the Sheikh is saying.
So the Sheikh is saying it's a weak opinion?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm with you. So he's saying the fact that there's natural punishment is not a strong deterrent for those people who want to do it.
Yeah, I don't know why he mentioned it at all.
Because the other thing that you mentioned there was the natural fitra,
yeah.
Fitra, thank you. Which is a natural imposition, as it's our natural way of being. And I know Muslims claim that no human being has a natural fitna towards homosexuality.
There's a huge... excuse me, but this fitna and fitra is very different things. Fitna means you're tried. How do you say? Tempted, temptation. Fitra is like the way you are created. You're natural, created by God.
Okay, so I'm meaning fitra then. Good. Thank you for correcting me. So the natural fitra that Muslims believe everybody is heterosexual, essentially, isn't it? That's the Muslim belief.
That's the natural thing. Like they are... Everything else than the fitra is kind of perversion.
Because when I speak to Muslims, part of their defense, or part of the reasons why they say it's a natural fitra, is because all animals in nature are like that. And of course, as we know, that's not the case. So in the natural world, there's at least some. I'd have to look up the specific numbers, but there are a number of species of animals that demonstrate homosexuality, like sheep, for example, and other
Yeah,
animals.
yeah.
So
it exists in many. There are some species where it's extremely common, and it's also different kinds. Maybe I can talk about that later, but like one interesting thing when I was researching this last night was that it's harder to find anything on lesbian sex, and I actually have found another thing about lesbian sex, but let's take that later. That is not.
Yes, I read up a little bit about that as well, where there were some opinions that seemed to suggest that lesbian sex wasn't as bad because there wasn't penetration.
Yeah, exactly. You can't really, exactly. I have found another thing. We can talk about that later. But the funny thing is, it's even harder to find about lesbian sex when it comes to the guy saying not correct. Homosexuality.
Yeah, so this is one of our Muslim viewers.
In the mainstream.
He's somebody
lesbian
that's
sex is almost mentioned where a woman may not lay with another. Also not almost.
So Evo is a viewer. So welcome to Evo. He is a Muslim. He was in his own words, a strong atheist, and he converted to Islam. And obviously, you were obviously a fairly strong Muslim who converted away from Islam. So
I was a very, very fundamentalistic dude.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting for the two of you to have conversations. But anyway, obviously, welcome to Evo, and also, so he's put some comments there. Homosexuality is a trial; it is not denied in the mainstream. I'm guessing what he means is that Muslims don't deny there is homosexuality. Well, I think it's hard to deny there is homosexuality, but I think there's a difference between denying whether there's homosexuality and then putting forward the case that the natural fitra of all people is heterosexuality. I think so. There's a difference between those two. And so if the Muslim claim is that it's a natural fitra of all human beings, I'm not sure what they use to back that up. And when they point to nature, of course, we look, like you say, at other species, and that isn't the case. So we can't use nature outside of human beings as a backup to suggest that all human beings are naturally heterosexual. So, maybe it's a case of Muslims giving us a reason outside of the Quran as to why they think nobody could be born homosexual.
Sorry, I'm trying to find this tape recording. Yeah. Stop spamming. Can you say something when I'm trying to find this? Hard to do two things at once.
I'm not sure if he's there or whether he's busy doing something else.
But yeah. But I wanted to say that it's even when it comes to modern scientific research, it's hard to find research on lesbian sex. So it's not only in Islam. It's less said about. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay, now I found it. Yes. Anyway. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, there's
my understanding is that lesbianism, let's call it that, so that's sort of an act between two women, is still seen as punishable, or it's a sin, but the punishment itself, and the little bit that I managed to find, I need to see if I've got it, is less potentially than that of two men. Would that be accurate?
Excuse me, but two. What did you say?
I know you're reading there. It seems to me that lesbianism is still seen as a sin, but the punishment itself is potentially less than that of two men.
Yeah, I can read I can find where is that? What they say exactly. So then we have that on it. Okay, the punishment for lesbian sex. This is from Islamic QA, and this is made by a Salafi sheikh. I don't know what his rank is really, but he's from Saudi Arabia anyway. This is considered to be a Salafi homepage. I know that homosexuality is haram, but I want to know the punishment for it. I was told by a fellow sister that it is the same as if someone commits zina, adultery. The lashing if you are unmarried and stoning if you're married. So which is correct for the punishment of this great sin? Praise be to Allah. Lesbians means a woman having sexual relationship with another woman. This is undoubtedly haram, and some scholars regard it as a major sin. The Imams are agreed that there is no had punishment for lesbians because it is not zina, unlawful sexual intercourse. Rather, it is to be punished with a ta'zir punishment, like deterrent punishment, in which the judge punishes the one who does that with a punishment which will deter her and others from doing this haram action. The fuqaha are agreed that there is no had punishment for lesbianism because it is not zina. Rather, a ta'zir punishment must be imposed because it is a sin. Ibn Qadama said, if two women engages in lesbian sexual relations, then they are guilty of zina and are cursed because it was narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, if a woman has sexual relations with another woman, then they are both guilty of zina. There is no had punishment for them because they did not have intercourse. Rather, it is like to intimate relationships that are less than intercourse, and they are to be subjected to ta'zir punishment, deterrent punishment. There is no had punishment for a woman who has sexual relationships with another woman. Rather, they are should be punished ta'zir punishment, and there is to repeat this hadith. This hadith narrated by. Okay.
So what is the punishment? Sorry, I understand that it's not like adultery.
I don't come to really what exactly they are doing. Maybe it's similar to the insane person, some kind of imprisonment or something. I don't really. Or maybe it's lashing.
Could you also comment on the following? Well, before you do that, let me go back a step to a couple of other points here. In that recording that you read out, you talked about homosexuals that had been judged guilty being thrown from walls. Is that right? Thrown from high walls.
That is one of the opinions that they should be. That is one of the serious opinions. I can say. Yes, can I say in another? I know I couldn't find that, but I know for sure that Ibn Taymiyyah, this Sheikh has talked about this in another. I think it was he has this lecture series when he makes tafsir on Qur'an. I think it is on when he makes tafsir on Surah An-Nisa. For those who know Arabic, I can say that lecture, the quality of that lecture is very good. The quality of this Sheikh, Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen, the very good quality lecture. He's a real scholar in grammar, and he's very good at Arabic language. So they are high quality, and he's very good at fiqh and things like that. So he is a real scholar.
He was very highly regarded, so his views...
Yeah, but even I, as a non-Muslim, can say that his lecture has high quality. Even like language.
But would you agree that there's a...
Can I say this? Because he said that the true opinion is that the ruler of the land decide what of these punishments should be, except for burning, which he think is wrong. If I remember this correctly, I think is this in his when he make tafsir on Surah An-Nisa.
Okay, so for somebody like myself who's viewing this externally, and I'm often told by Muslims that, number one, the Quran is easy to understand. Number two, it's plain for all people. My question to yourself as an ex-Muslim, or to any Muslim for that matter, is how come there are so many differing opinions? Surely if it's straightforward, both the opinions of what it says as well as the punishments should be, blatantly straightforward. Now, I understand that there could be extenuating circumstances in some cases, but let's assume that two men or two women, let's go with men because that's obviously seemingly the more serious offense according to Islam. If two men are found guilty, the judgment is clear, etc., etc. Perhaps they even admit it, whatever the case may be. Why is it that we have differing punishments as opposed to following, for example, either being thrown off the wall or being stoned, both of which you mentioned in your
I mean, one of them,
recitation.
there are three caliphs that said it should be burning. Among of them are Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, who is the first caliph, the best Sahaba. However, there's another hadith of when Ali ibn Abi Talib burned some apostates. And then I think it was Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, I'm not sure, some Sahaba. They came to him and said, I actually heard the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that you only Rabbun Nar, only the Lord of the fire can punish with fire. So, but there's also Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, I think he said there is some there are sometimes you can break these rules. But I'm not sure he say that. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he thinks that stoning, if I understand this correctly, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah thinks that stoning is the correct punishment. And most of the Salaf, I believe that stoning is the correct punishment.
Okay, so let's assume that stoning is the correct punishment. Can
but
you
there are
elucidate?
Versions also, because as I said, throwing from a wall and nothing more than that is another opinion, and it's also a strong opinion. Throwing from a wall and then throwing stones at them is also an opinion. That's also a strong opinion. And another one is burying them alive in a stinky place. That is also a strong opinion. So all of these are a strong opinion, and Uthaymin thinks that the correct is to let the ruler of the land decide how to kill them.
Okay, so there's a variety of really unpleasant punishments in this world for people who are found guilty. We'll put that aside for 1 second. What is your view, and what is the mainstream, or what is the strong opinions on how people are judged? Because oftentimes when I speak to Muslims, those that want to make it sound, and it may well be, and that's why I'm asking your opinion, they want to make it sound like it's very difficult to be found guilty. In other words, you've got to go through a lot of procedures. So can you share your view
they
on
say that
what happens?
Of heterosexual adultery, that is hard because you need to have 4 witnesses, but I don't think you need that in the case of homosexuals. So I think the burden of proof is a bit less in homosexuals. But I might be wrong. I think
okay, that might be something. If you've got any information on that during the show that you
I'm
can bring up.
almost sure that the 4 witnesses is only for heterosexual adultery. But
Okay, so
what was your question again? I forgot.
So the question is, what does it take to convict somebody of homosexuality, in other words? So what does it actually take? Is it one person seeing them in an act in public? Because some Muslims say to me, not that it's fine, but it's okay if they do something behind closed doors because nobody's going to know. But the moment something happens out in public, then they are going against the society, etc.
That's rubbish. It's not fine. It's just that if they do it behind closed doors, then there's not going to be any witnesses, and unless they admit that they have done it, they're not going to get convicted for it because there's no evidence. But they will still be punished on the last day by God.
I've just seen a question there. There's somebody asking, who is the guy answering Rob? So maybe you can just answer him and tell him who you are. Again, just briefly, because obviously we've got extra people watching.
I said
there,
that
but we have
before.
somebody there.
Okay, so I'm an ex-Muslim. I studied Arabic and Sharia and things in Arabic countries, mostly in Saudi Arabia.
And who is the sheikh that you studied under?
No, I studied in a university, but I studied under different mashayikh. I don't know if I want to mention, but one of them happened to be the greatest muhaddith alive. Yes, okay. I'm not bragging here. It's just like.
No, well, I mean, if you manage to study under somebody that's considered, an expert in their field,
that's. I was his official student or anything, but I. On his lecture.
I mean, I would certainly tell people if I had studied under, I don't know, Kant or Hume or Daniel Dennett or A.C. Grayling or some, highly regarded philosophers. So, and it wouldn't make me sound good. It would just be that I was lucky enough to study under somebody. So
yeah. But the thing is,
it's
this
not
is
boasting. It's,
people say this always. They say, I'm a student of El Uthaymin because I once watched on a lecture with him, or 1 week I was on a lecture series with him or something.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you're an official student.
Okay, so really what
I
we need
knew an
to...
official student of Al-Albani, but I'm not any official student of any dude.
So what we really need to see if we can clarify, and if there's any Muslims watching, then please type into the chat, what is the requirement to be found guilty? So is it a single person seeing two men engaged in some kind of act? Does the act, according to Muhammad Hijab, which is the tall guy from Speaker's Corner, do they need to see penetration? Do they just need to see them kissing? What? And once that evidence has been seen, is it one person that sees them? What needs to happen in order for them to be brought forward and then to be found guilty?
My answer is I am not sure. I can, if you give me time, I can check it up, but I'm almost sure it's the burden of proof is less than.
Have a quick look, because I've got a few things that I will. Because obviously we're talking about Islam and homosexuality, and I guess it'll be useful to reference the Quran as well. So I'm going to.
But the thing is, that may vary from like country to country. Also, I don't know really what's not true.
Well, see, here's some of the Quranic verses that obviously refer to this. Quran 70. Quran Surah 7. Is it verse 80 to 84? Ye practice your lusts on men in preference to women. Ye are indeed a people transgressing beyond bounds. And we rain down on them a shower of brimstone. An account that is borrowed from biblical story of Sodom. Muslim scholars through the centuries have interpreted the rain of stones on the town as meaning that homosexuals should be stoned, since no other reason is given for the people's destruction. And then Quran 7, verse 81. Will ye commit abominations such as no creature ever did before you? Again, that I would be questioning that just on the basis of what we understand in the natural world. If it had said no other human before you, again, that would be a question mark. But certainly, whether you are committing this abomination, if it refers to homosexuality, because clearly, that's been happening in the animal kingdom, and that's a biological fact. And this again goes to the previous verse. And then Quran, Surah 26, and verse 165 and 166. Of all the creatures in the world, will ye approach males and leave those whom Allah has created for you to be your mates? Nay, ye are people transgressing.
This I think this is almost a topic in itself. Can I postpone it to next week? Because this is a huge topic, like what's the burden of proof in every particular thing? Like, so what's the burden of proof when it comes to stealing? What's the burden of proof when it's come to different things? Can I postpone that to next week?
Yes,
because it's such a big topic. I just want to make
sure that
it takes a long time to go into all that. But I definitely don't. It's too big topic to get in to now. So I'm actually just guessing from what I remember. I think I'm almost sure.
So, but if we keep it simple, from your knowledge, there's no one specific thing. It varies between different countries in terms of what's required to find somebody guilty. But then also, there's various opinions on the punishment. Would that be accurate?
I mean, as I said, what is required for being guilty. I'm not going to say anything more now because I have to make research on that. I have a vague memory, but I'm not. I don't. But the thing with punishment, yes, then is the thing that I read now. The punishment. We've got a gentleman in chat there that's saying tipping a wall over them, hoisting them to the highest wall in the village, and throwing them down, and that has there is 1A, or we can call tipping a wall on them is 1. Hoisting them to the highest wall is 1A, 2A, throwing them down from the highest wall and throwing stones after that is 2B. 3 is burning them. That was these 3 caliphs did. 4, what was that? Burying them alive in a stinky place. What was the next? Stoning them, was that 5th? Stoning them, most Salaf thought they should be stoned. And I think Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah thought that too. I'm not sure, but most Salaf thought that. What was the 6th? What have I forgotten?
Can I just ask as well, because I think we're talking over each other every now and again. So if each of us are talking, can we just wait like 1 or 2 seconds to wait for the other person to finish? So I'll make sure that you finish speaking before I come in. So if there's a short gap, let's have that gap, because I think sometimes we talk over each other just because of the lag with Google Hangouts.
Yes, there is a time lag. Yeah. I make a little pause.
Okay, so cool. Okay, so currently there's different opinions on what it takes to find somebody guilty, or obviously 2 people.
That we take for next. Oh, sorry, we take that for next week because it's too big a topic. I'm not gonna. It's not good if I say something that is wrong about this. It's better I say as it is. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you can bring all the different punishments if you've got the time, because that's not something that I'm going to delve into at this moment in time. But I think the point I'm making is that there's multiple different requirements by the sounds of it. There isn't one single, here you follow A, B, C, D, and then, so it sounds like there's differences there, but there's also differences in the punishment.
The guy that is asking all these questions, if you're Arabi, this Sharif Al-Hadi or whatever it is, if you're Arabi, look at the link I posted on Shaykh al-Islam. Everything what you're asking now, everything Al-Uthaymeen goes through all of these things. So the link that I posted, what was it called? It's called فصل الخامس حد الزاني حد اللواط أنواع العقوبة فصل السادس حد شرب الخمر وقذف. And this is you can just type that into YouTube and you will find it immediately with Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen. I can post the link one more time. Then we'll have all the answers. Because now you're asking questions that I read all those things, and then you're asking questions.
Yeah, just post that in the link there, Abu, again, and then Sharif can go and do some research. I think he came late to the show, so there you go. There you go, Sharif. If you go and watch that, Abu says that will answer many of your questions.
BJ Price, again, practiced by the Taliban. If I remember correctly, the Taliban used both the burying alive. ISIS throws from high place. They use the throwing from high place, but they don't throw stones afterwards. There's also I am talking of Islamic jurisprudence. Yeah, and Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen is one of the greatest fuqaha of our time, and is going through that in this video. Go and watch that video and you will see exactly what it is. Okay, so yeah.
I'm going to post it. There was a request there to post the link to the video, which I'm just doing now. I've posted the link to that video that Abu has put at the bottom of the description in the video description. So if you scroll to the bottom of the video description, you will see that link posted in there, because obviously the chat will run through and it'll be hard to find that. So I've just posted it right at the bottom for Eva and Sharif. If you want to go and look into it, then there's a video for you. So the other question that I sometimes have, or I ask, or I have some kind of communication with some Muslims, is why do people need to be judged and punished in this world if they are going to be punished by Allah in the hereafter anyway? So it's like a double punishment.
Because when you live in an Islamic society and you have an Islamic state, things that, I mean, if you're living like in Britain where you don't have Sharia and you commit a major sin, you don't have to be stoned or do anything. You can just make tawbah. But the thing is, if you live in an Islamic state, then you have different kinds of punishments because it will create a nice, peaceful society and all that. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, so the reason that they get punished is to avoid them tainting the state, but at the same time, they're also going to get punished in the afterlife when they're judged by Allah and then punished there as well.
Yeah, if they don't make tawbah. However, one of the benefits of being punished in this life is that the punishment in this life is less bad than punishment in the hereafter. So it's better to be punished in this life than in the hereafter.
Okay, but so just go step back. What is tawbah?
Tawbah is regret. You translate it like you you ask God for forgiveness and you regret that you did and you're making niyyah that you want to it in the future.
Okay, so let's say somebody does that, but this is presumably before they're going to be punished anyway. So they're about to be stoned to death and they can then ask for that sort of, atonement. They're still going to be
Sharif
punished.
Al-Hadi, I just want to say, you don't even have a beard. What am I making up? Can you say exactly what I'm making up? Yes, I am an Arab. Okay, if you're an Arab, go and watch that bloody video with Sheikh al-Islam, with Al-Uthaymeen. يا أخي اتق الله يا محق اتق الله يا حق. Anyway, yes.
Okay, so getting back to what I was saying, so the person has been found guilty. They're going to be punished, be it stoning, be it thrown off the wall, whatever. But they can atone at the moment before they get killed, and then presumably their punishment is less, or is it wiped away in the hereafter?
Yeah, it's better to be punished in this life because the punishment in the hereafter is much worse. You see what I'm saying? That's one of the good things. I mean, normally if you make tawbah, it's no problem. But if you're clean,
what do you mean it's no problem though? What do you mean?
Because Allah says, وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَقْبَلُ التَّوْبَةَ مِنْ إِبَادِهِ, and that Allah accepts the tawbah from His slaves.
Does He automatically accept it?
Yes, He says in Surah At-Tawbah in many places that He accept the tawbah from His slaves if it is an honest tawbah. And then there are like shurut al-tawbah, like can you say in English, conditions of the tawbah. So you have to regret it, and you have to have the niyyah to not make it in the future, and so on. There are different.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you. And of course, it's so the view on homosexuality basically in Islam is widely held as well. And I'll just show this briefly here as well. So I think this was a little while back, but this was the head, I don't know if he still is the head of the Muslim Council of Britain, Sir Iqbal Sakrani, and he may even be an MP or a lord now, I'm not entirely sure. But he basically says, and this is in Britain, of course, that it does not augur well in building the very foundations of society, stability, family relationships, and this is something we would certainly not in any form encourage the community to be involved in. So obviously, it's widely held. I don't think there's anybody who can say that homosexuality is in any way allowed or forgiven or overlooked in Islam. But like you mentioned, if they do it in private, it's essentially nobody knows. And that's the best that one can hope for.
But it's still a sin. It's like for example, God says that the munafiqeen, the guys, how do you say munafiq in English? The hypocrites, they are in the lowest level in hellfire, but you don't punish them unless they show their hypocrisy openly. So there's no punishment, although they are the worst of all people. The hypocrites don't get any punishment in this Islamic Sharia in this life, but in the next life they will go on the darkil asfali minan nar, the lowest level of hellfire, the worst level of hellfire.
Yeah, okay. So obviously, well, let me just ask you, Abu, now as an ex-Muslim, so what is your personal view, if you're open to share that, what is your personal view on homosexuality? Because you may well not accept it even though you have converted. What is your view?
No, I don't have any problem. Okay, my personal view. Okay, if you take only male homosexuality, my view is that male homosexuality is an evolutionary adaptation. There are different theories. For example, Steven Pinker still think it's a mystery. But if my favorite theory, if I can find it, this is from, I think, Royal Institute. Okay, if I explain what I think it is. So, evidence for maternally inherited factors favoring male homosexuality and promoting female fecundity. The Darwinian paradox of male homosexuality in humans is examined, i.e., if male homosexuality has a genetic component and homosexuals reproduce less than heterosexuals, then why is this trait maintained in the population? In sample of 98 homosexual and 100 heterosexual men and their relatives, a total of over 4,600 individuals, we found that female maternal relatives of homosexuals have higher fecundity. They are more attracted to men than female maternal relatives, and they have more kids and so on. Than female maternal relatives of heterosexuals, and this difference is not found in female paternal relatives. The study confirms previous reports, in particular that homosexuals have more maternal than paternal male homosexual relatives. The homosexual males are more often later born than firstborn, and they have more older brothers than older sisters. We discussed these findings and their implications of current research on male homosexuality. So if you want to find real scientific articles, you can Google female fecundity, male homosexuality, and so on. So what it means is that homosexuality is not an evolutionary adaptation. It's not a sexual evolutionary adaptation for the males themselves. It doesn't give their exact genes more likelihood to survive, but because their sisters are more sexually active and because they kind of like men more. There's a kind of genetical change on the X chromosome. And when the females get it, the females that have that, they like men very much and have a lot of children, more children than other women. And this genetical difference on the X chromosome exists on males as well. And because of probably some small epigenetical changes, for example, if the mother have had a lot of male children already, or because some stresses before birth, this epigenetical change kind of turn on this gene on the man also, not only on the woman, and then he becomes homosexual. But the real evolutionary benefit is not on the males that get it, is on the females that get this gene. So the females kind of compensate for the homosexual men, and the homosexual men are mostly late born, and mostly after some stress. And there are other evolutionary benefits. Not always is it the best that you have as many offsprings as possible. So sometimes it can be as a kind of birth control. And the homosexuals often take care of their sisters' children and things like that. It's a stabilizer for the family, and since one male can fertilize many females, as is acknowledged in Islam, because polygamy is allowed in Islam, but this is just a fact, and most societies where polygamy had some kind of polygamy, although most couples are not, are just two pairs. Anyway, because of all this, the evolutionary benefit is on the female side. Females with this set of genes have more children, and yeah, you understand? This is my view on homosexuality. And
have you got a link that you can post in the chat for us to have a look at? If not, that's okay. I'm just asking because you obviously went into depth.
Okay, I just have to find it.
So if I summarize what you said, short version of that is basically that females with this Y, is it the Y chromosome?
X
or
chromosome.
the X chromosome, the females that are lesbian have got a evolutionary advantage because they will bear more
they
children.
have more children, and they like men very much.
But so if they are lesbian,
no, they are not.
Normally.
Now we're only talking about homosexuals, men. Lesbian is another thing.
Okay, all right. So let me correct that then. So a woman that bears, more children, one of those children is the firstborn or whichever of the male will have the X chromosome.
Yeah, but you also need a kind of epigenetic change, because because you have a gene doesn't mean that it's turned on. These epigenetics it's like light switches. Some genes are turned on and some genes are turned off. So the firstborn males, they also have this gene, but it's not turned off. But maybe if, say that this woman have had 3 heterosexual men or boys, and then something, say that a stressor happens, say that her, I don't know what the stressor exactly is, but say that something happens, then her immune system or something like that will turn on this epigenetic switch on this guy when he's in his early development, and then this gene will turn on and he will become gay.
Okay, I understand that.
Or this is the hypothesis.
Okay, so it's not demonstrated in any way. It's just
it's
one hypothesis.
It's quite well demonstrated, I would say.
Okay, if you've got any info on that, that'll be useful, because I want to have a look at that, because obviously when I speak to Muslims, they want to suggest that everybody has an innate fitra of heterosexuality, and from what you're saying, presumably there's some evidence to show that that's not true for whatever reason, as you've explained there in more detail.
Yeah, that is obviously false.
Okay, so if you can post something, that would be very useful.
This link. I don't know why it can't post.
Oh, maybe because do it in our private chat, and I'll copy and paste it, because you haven't started the
I have it
Hangout.
on the other computer.
It prevents you from copying links. Only the person who starts the Hangouts can post links. I don't know why. I haven't changed anything, but it prevents links from being posted, and I can't disable that.
This is, I just can say, this is on Royal Society. RSB.
I'm going to try actually to see if I can. There might be an option for me here.
If you take Royal Society and first you type RSPB and then this link that I paste.
Okay, I've made you a moderator on the chat. See if you can post it in the chat now for me. I've made you a moderator on the chat.
No, because I have 2 computers, so I have used 1 computer for that, and so I have 2 computers at one time. Or maybe I could post it. No, I could post it.
Yeah, there you go, because I've made you a moderator, so presumably that's why.
Now I'm using the Abu Molhid.
Yes.
But you can just Google that. There are many scientific papers that goes through this in details. You can Google for example, evidence for maternally inherited factors favoring male homosexuality and promoting female fecundity. Things like that. There are many scientific questions.
It's a mouthful. Okay, yeah. I'll attempt to do that. That's quite a
And I think
mouthful.
this is also the view of Robert Sapolsky at Stanford University. And he has a very good lecture series on neurobiology. And in that lecture series is, for example, human sexuality, and goes through the evolutionary reasons and so on for human sexuality. Anyway, but that is my favorite trio. But that might be wrong, but I'm pretty confident that that is probably true, because I'm convinced by the evidence that it's not on the homosexual side that the benefit is mainly. The mainly benefit is on the female side. The sisters have many children, and but it is an evolutionary benefit to have someone a man that takes care of the children, and sometimes having a lot of guys that gonna compete on having sex with all the women is not good, because then maybe they kill each other and things like that. So more is not, the more mouth you have to feed, it can reach a tipping point where more mouths to feed is actually less good from an evolutionary point of view.
Right. So I've got to get it clear in my head, because I'm not yet clear, but that's fine. I need to get it clear in my head, because when if I were to share what you shared with me there, I need to be clear on that, because if the evolutionary benefit isn't for the male, obviously my interlocutors are going to pull up on that. So I need to be quite clear on how the benefit translates to the female. So I'll need to read a little bit.
A mathematical thing, like say that, so the male Y chromosome, that male, if he say that he have 5 siblings, 3 brothers and 2 sisters, so the male Y chromosome has already been reproduced to his 3 brothers, so that part of the genome is safe. Okay, then you have the X chromosome, which both the males and the sisters have. Okay, the sisters. So if the 2 sisters gonna compensate for him by having a lot of children, so this increased female fecundity increases, they will marry earlier, have more children, and so on. They will like men more, so to speak. They would be more.
But do they come after him, though? Are they born after him or before him?
As I understand it, most of the time homosexuals tend to be late born. They tend to be later, they tend to be the later brothers, but whether or not they come before him or not doesn't really matter so much, I think. But this is not my area of expertise. I bet you look into the articles and but
okay.
I was quite convinced
I just need to understand the words to type in, because you said them, but unless I go back and listen to this again, I'm not going to remember the exact words to go and type into Google. And that link of yours, it didn't seem to work. You've got to put a www in front, or HTTP or something, otherwise it doesn't click.
It's RSPB, Royal Society. But afterwards I can post it in the comments, all the links and things like that.
Okay. All right.
Here's you can type in evidence for maternally inherited factors favoring male homosexuality and promoting female fecundity. Anyway, so that's what I think is the evolutionary reason. But whatever it is, there must be an evolutionary reason, because otherwise it's so common that there must be some evolutionary reason. Otherwise, nature must have wiped it out. And yes, I mean, nature can make mistakes sometime. I mean, I'm open to, for example, that maybe transsexualism is some kind of mistake, because there it seems that it is like a female brain in a male body, and vice versa. So that I can say, maybe that is a mistake. But homosexuality, I don't think it's a mistake. I think it is an evolutionary adaptation. And this is my favorite theory.
Okay, but evolutionary adaptations on their own, if we look at it from a moral perspective, that in and of itself doesn't justify it being moral. It just justifies it in the sense that it continues the human race in some way.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. It doesn't mean that it's moral, but when I'm saying I don't have any kind of metaphysical, I don't think that it's sinful. I don't have any metaphysical problem with homosexuals. Actually, I have met homosexuals, and many of them are extremely nice people. There's also some studies that homosexuals in general tend to have higher IQ.
yeah, but that would have to, you'd have to have something else besides that, because high IQ on its own isn't going to. That's a moral case for those people being hopefully better integrated, more intelligent in the sense of they get on with their co-human beings. But in and of itself, having a higher IQ doesn't necessarily mean, that's beneficial to the human race in and of itself.
No. I'm just mentioning that. Maybe I can find that study too. But the thing is, there are many. I mean, what I'm saying, I don't have anything against homosexuals.
No, sure, I understand
That's
that,
the point.
and that I just wanted to understand your
And
point.
I think it's just so evil to kill homosexuals because they didn't choose to be born like that. It's not their choice. To punish someone for something that they can't control. I mean, I think that is just the height of.
Yes, so you would then bring, but then you would bring your evidence to say, hey, it's because they can't control it, because obviously Muslims believe that, and it was posted in the chat a little bit earlier by Evo, at least, and I'm sure other Muslims say the same, that it's a test, and it's whether they can quote quote pass the test or not. I guess meaning that in order to pass the test, they have to reject this feelings they have.
I can understand that. I mean, you can say, for example, we have like there exist. I don't know if there's another thing, like, for example, I think the most common, I don't know what you call it in English, but like divergent sexuality or something like that. Like the most common is pedophilia. And then you can ask, what's the evolutionary benefit of pedophilia? Is there even an evolutionary benefit? But let's just suppose that they are born pedophiles, which, I mean, I'm not sure that's the case. But there you can say they have to control their sexuality, not because they could choose how they were born, if they indeed are born like that, I don't know. But because it will hurt other people if they act upon their sexuality. So there you can say it is a test. The problem with that in homosexuality is that homosexuals don't create any damage. If two homosexuals have sex with each other, you can think that that is disgusting. You may not want to watch it. I don't want to watch it, but it's not my problem. They don't make any, like, it has absolutely no, it doesn't affect me in any way possible. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that's your opinion. Okay, so a Muslim would respond to you and say, and I'm just playing back to you what I've heard them say to me. So if I play devil's advocate, they would say to you, no, it is harming society because it's taking society away from what we as Muslims consider to be the right, straight, sinless path, etc. And that is they are moving society away. So they are in fact, from a Muslim point of view, potentially impacting society in a negative way. Now, that's not my belief.
There are
but
studies.
I am
there are actually studies on this. On there's an island. What's it called? Somor or something. There's this group that is called Fifia or something like that, where you have these homosexual brothers, and they have made studies on them, and they are absolutely not a destructive force for the family. The opposite. Families with homosexual men in it tend to be more together and things like that. It's a force for good for the family. So the opposite, they are a good force for society. If you look at the studies, they tend to.
But that's not in Muslim countries, though, is it?
No, not in Muslim countries, but in countries where it is allowed and accepted, they are a good force for the family. It's good for the other siblings and good for the husband.
Okay, so define what you mean by good, because obviously Muslims would challenge you or me on what we mean
I
by
can.
good and what our foundation is. So, but we don't need to go into the foundation now. But explain why you say it's good.
No, then I have to link to this study. I can link to it later. I have to find it. Okay, so I have to link to that. So good. What they meant is that, if I remember this correctly, the family is not broken. The family unit is kept together. They take care of their other siblings. They take care of their siblings' children. The parents don't get divorced. They do a lot of work that other people don't do and things like that. But I can refer to this study. It's better. Okay.
Okay, that would be useful to refer to the study.
Later.
Because obviously a Muslim could say as well, if I was devil's advocate, they could say, well, yes, there may be, if they accepted your study, there may be some benefits to the family, but that could also be outweighed because the Quran says that it's a sin, and therefore if you accept the homosexual in the family in an Islamic society, you are allowing a sinner to continue sinning, and some of the members of the family would then see that as a sin or no longer see it as a sin, and then they would start to be influenced by the quote sinner. So they would
but then that is
something like that.
That is presuming that the Quranic narrative and all that is correct. If yes, of course, if Islam is true, then we better be Muslims, because otherwise we will spend an eternity in hellfire. So yes, of course, if Islam is true, then it's true. But the problem is, it ain't true.
But I think that's a separate point, though. In the following sense, yes, obviously, if that's the case, that's the case. I guess what I mean is that they are obviously they believe Islam is true, but what they are saying is that he would be a sinner. So they are countering your positive points with negative points from their point of view, assuming that it's true, obviously, and you're assuming that it's not true. So really, as an objective observer, I guess it's for us and it's for them to bring forward our reasons why we think it's good, or in their case, the reasons why we think it's bad. Now, then one can present those two viewpoints, assuming both worlds of views are true, and somebody outside of the worldview who's not judging the worldviews themselves, but is just judging the evidence for why you say it's okay and why a Muslim says it isn't okay. And just judging it from that point of view. Yes, of course, we're all going to have some kind of a bias, but at least that way you can present evidence, and so can they, and we can evaluate the evidence, isn't it?
Yeah, but yes.
Yeah, and obviously from what you've said.
Presuming, if say that a God would say that all people, unless we cut out our eyes from our eye sockets, and we walk in blindness our whole lives, and we starve ourselves to death, then we're going to burn in eternity in hellfire. And if that assumption is true, then yes, we should cut out our eyes and we should starve ourselves to death, because that is a lesser evil than burning in hellfire forever. The problem is there's no good reason to believe that is true to begin with.
Sorry, where does it say that?
No, not. I mean, yes, this is just a Gedanken experiment. Say that was true, that God will punish us in eternal hellfire if we don't starve ourselves to death and torture ourselves. Then yes, starving ourselves to death and torturing ourselves is the correct thing to do in this life.
Yes, sure. If and that could be an objection to command divine theory. Obviously, from the point of view of theists and Muslims going, whatever God says is true. And then you are obviously bringing forth an example. If God said this, would you do it? And if they were consistent, they would have to say yes. But that's obviously veering off towards morality, which, and I know we've talked about morality and other things, but we keep coming back to that because, whatever we talk about here, let's say it's homosexuality, slavery, whatever it is, our Muslim interlocutors, you could say our friends, whatever term you want to use, those Muslims would ask us these questions. They would go back to morality. They go back to the beginning of the universe. So we almost come full circle. No matter what we say, their response is oftentimes, well, how can you say it's wrong? No, as I say, we don't need to go deep into morality here, but obviously that's something for us to be aware of. Have you changed your... Oh, yes, you have. There you go. You've changed your
this is a
icon
picture
there.
of Al-Uthaymin. I have to take a short pause. Can you read... Wait a minute. I paste in the chat if you could read this thing about lesbians and if you can find anything interesting. Because this is in English.
Okay, I
Or
don't see
maybe
it at the moment.
some funny guy like Ike or someone can join. Wait a minute. Where is the... Now I have 472 Windowses opened. The Jinn&Tonic show there. So there is the link. We talk about lesbians.
It keeps cutting out your HTTP there. Okay, yeah, I'll grab that.
No, you can't post HTTPS.
Okay.
Okay, I take a pause.
Okay, go for it. So let's just put this in here. Get this. That's not what we want. Back into my keyboard here. Let's just see if this comes up. Oh, there we go. There's punishment for lesbianism. So let's have a look and see what does this say. Okay, so if we look at this now. Punishment for lesbian. I know that homosexuality is haram, but I wanted to know what the punishment for it. I was told by a fellow sister that it's the same as if someone committed zina. The lashing if you are unmarried and stoning if you are married. So what is the correct punishment for this great sin? And somebody responds here. Praise be to Allah, lesbianism means a woman having sexual relations with another woman. This is undoubtedly haram, and some scholars regard it as a major sin. And there's an unpronounceable name for me. The Imams are agreed that there is no had punishment for lesbianism because it's not zina, unlawful sexual intercourse. Rather, it is to be punished with a tazir punishment, in which the judge punishes the one who does that with a punishment which will deter her and others from doing the haram action. I'm not sure if it says here what the actual punishment is. It's agreed that there is no hard punishment for lesbian because it's not a zitra. Yeah, so it keeps repeating itself there. Okay, so it appears to be that there's less punishment for lesbianism than for homosexuality. So, and they need to be, the word there is, they need to be, where is it? They need to be deterred rather than potentially killed. They need to be deterred from doing so. Okay, so here's again just a summary of this. Islam teaches that homosexual acts are sinful and punishable by God. This teaching comes not from human beings, but from the creator of all humans. God tells us in his own words how he punished the people of Lot for their homosexual behavior. The story of Lot, on whom be peace, finds mention in several Quranic verses, especially chapter 26, verses 160 to 175. And there is the reading. So clearly, as we said, it is a sin. There's various punishments. And perhaps if Abu has time next week, he can share with us, hopefully relatively briefly, because we don't need to go into all of them, but what the mainstream punishments are. Because again, you know, whenever I speak to people, and certainly some people, they want to revert to the least bad punishment. You know, so if there are different punishments in different countries, for example, stoning, being thrown from a high wall, there might be one where, in fact, they're not sentenced to death. Then some of my Muslim interlocutors will attempt to point to those and go, hey, they aren't actually, you know, put to death. And obviously, you know, I need to be able to be aware that that's perhaps not an entirely honest position, because it seems like the majority of scholars, the majority of schools of jurisprudence talk about some kind of assuming they are found guilty. Obviously, we're assuming they're found guilty, but most of them seem to talk about a fairly harsh punishment if they are found guilty. So let's just have a quick look here. The Hanafi school does not consider same-sex intercourse to constitute adultery, and therefore leaves punishment up to the judge's discretion. Most early scholars of the school specifically ruled out the death penalty. Others allow it for a second offense. Imam Shafti considers same-sex intercourse as analogous to another zina. Thus, a married person found to have done so is punished as an adulterer by stoning to death, and an unmarried one as a fornicator is left to be flogged. The Maliki school says that anyone married or unmarried found to have committed same-sex intercourse should be punished as an adulterer, i.e. stoned to death. Within the Jafra schools, this gentleman there, Sayyid al-Khoury, says that anyone married or unmarried found to have committed same-sex intercourse should be punished as an adulterer. Now, again, there may be some other views on this, but it seems like a number of the views relate to being punished like an adulterer, and stoning is one of the main offenses when you are found guilty. Again, we're always assuming that they are actually being found guilty of homosexuality. So obviously, Abu has brought some information regarding some biological facts, etc., where it could be shown that in fact it's not necessarily bad. And what we mean by bad is there's some benefit, A, from an evolutionary point of view, and B, from a family point of view. So it actually enhances the family. I would need to read up on that in order to be more clear on the specifics of that. But oftentimes, obviously, I am confronted with Muslims who want to obviously quote the Qur'an, which is one thing, but we need evidence outside of the Qur'an. And I always say this to Muslims anyway, and I'll repeat it here again. The Qur'an is a book of claims. It's not a book of evidence of anything. So it's simply a book of claims, just like a Bible, the Book of Mormon, or anything else. So in order to verify or to attempt to confirm the Qur'an, we need to look outside of the Qur'an. And so anybody that's bringing evidence, the moment they say the Qur'an is evidence of anything, it's a tautology. They're not understanding what they're talking about, because you start with the Qur'an and then you go and look as a Muslim outside to get your evidence to convince me as a non-believer that what the Qur'an says is true, because I've got no reason to believe the Qur'an in and of itself. So you need to convince me. So what Abu has done quite well here is share some of the biological and evolutionary and potentially moral points of view as to why homosexuality is not wrong. What I'd love to have is a Muslim who says to me, okay, here's why it's wrong. It's wrong because it says so in the Quran, which is self-evident, obviously. But there's additional reasons, and that's what I would like Muslims to present to me in some way. What are the reasons they believe homosexuality is wrong apart from the Quran? And now we can weigh those up. My own personal view, of course, is the same as Abu's, in the sense that I don't see it as being wrong. In order for me to call it wrong, there would need to be harm done to other people. But I will say one thing, though, that when Abu brought up pedophilia, that's a different example, and those two are not, in my view, exactly the same. Because obviously with pedophilia, you have an adult and you have a child who's not capable of making the decision, an informed decision. So there is a difference in my view. If you have two adults, let's call it over the age of 18, and when I had a brief look, they reckon that you need to be at least 25 for your brain to be fully developed. Now, whether that actually means fully developed to make an informed choice, that's not entirely 100% clear. But what we do seem to know is that you need to be of a late teen, early 20s, or in that vicinity in order for your brain to be developed and for you to make an informed, sane decision. And that's the difference.
Actually, I cannot. This is probably something I have a little bit expertise on. So actually, the brain isn't fully developed until you're about 25. And the last part to develop completely is the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that regulates kind of decision making. Like, it gives you impulse control. So But when I talked about pedophilia before, I said that I'm not sure that is a real, that you're born with it. If you're born with it, then yes, it's not your fault that you're born with it, but you cannot act upon it, because that will hurt other third-part individuals.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And the reason why is because obviously they're not at a point where they can consent with full knowledge. Let's use that term. Obviously, there's better ways of putting it. But with homosexuals, assuming they're of a consenting age where they have got a fully developed brain, so that's the difference between the two. But I'm in the same position as you. I as long as they're not hurting anybody else, from a very simplistic point of view, what they do, it's not how am I to judge them as wrong unless we can bring some evidence outside of my personal feelings. Now, for me personally, I've got no problem with homosexuals. I'm not particularly, if when I see two men engaged in some kind of act, and I'm not talking about the actual penetration, I'm just talking about kissing. For me, that's not something that I feel that comfortable around, but I recognize that's just my view and I can move myself away from it. But I'm not in no way going to condemn them for my discomfort. And I think that's the position for me as a heterosexual man. I can feel some level of kind of discomfort because it's not something I would do, but in no way could I condemn them just because I don't feel comfortable. If I could demonstrate, or if it could be demonstrated in some way that there's some negative harm to the wider community or society, etc., outside of the Quran, so something that we can look at, now I can view it in a different, but I haven't come across anything like that. So, of course, if there is anybody, then please do share that, but I'm not aware of any information. And again, we need to look at it from an external source, because a couple of people have posted so-called research from right-wing Christian websites, etc., and those one needs to take, extremely skeptically. So, we're much more likely to take a secular view on this that isn't actually attempting to show that it's wrong. They're just coming with, let's call it, unbiased evidence.
Yeah. What did they claim? The Christians.
I'd have to look back at it. I wasn't entirely sure. There was some sort of claim around how they attempted to show that homosexuality was wrong, or had a negative influence on people outside of the two individuals engaging in that act. But I don't remember the specifics, so I'd have to go and look, because obviously that's the only thing that's going to convince us as non-believers would be evidence outside of the books. Like I say, the books are claims. Now tell me why you think that view is correct. And if your answer is because God said so, that's not an answer. That's circular reasoning. God wrote the book that says God is correct. So obviously that's not going to fly for any of us that are skeptical. You need to present me with something else.
I mean, one such country is, for example, in Russia. I don't know exactly how the law is there, but I think they are they have a very, very light version of anti-gay laws somehow. Not that you're not allowed to be gay, but you're not allowed to make commercials for it or something like that.
Well, I think even in Russia now, Putin is very anti-gay. But there's a lot of countries that are like that, and he will point to his Christian faith, or the Eastern Orthodox Christian faith.
But I think he's afraid that people won't have children or something like that. He wants the Russians to have many children because he thinks that's a good geopolitical move.
Yeah, but as you pointed out, and as evolution has shown, whether you're homosexual or not, it's a very, very small number of the population. And as you have said, it could well help societies and families grow and nurture, and you could have more children. So
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
not sure what he's basing his evidence on. I suspect it's more a case of that's his personal view rather than there's any evidence for
that. I'm not sure. I don't think he cares. I think he is just a Machiavellian leader. He's in bed with the Orthodox Church, and maybe the Orthodox Church wants him to do some things. And as in his Machiavellian plan, he thinks that, okay, I have to give them something, so I give them this. But I don't think he cares that much himself.
Yeah, I mean, we could speculate about Putin, but again, that is heavily influenced by Orthodox or Eastern Orthodox Christianity, as far as I understand.
Did you read anything about the lesbians?
Yes, I did read a little bit about that. I copied and pasted your link and kind of read what you had said already.
Did they say anything more? Zina.
How did I pronounce that? Zina.
Zina.
Unlawful. Yeah. And so they don't see it. They see that as like you quite rightly said, no. So it's kind of what you said, which was it's seen as zinnia because it's not zinnia, not zinnia, and therefore the punishment is one to deter them rather than kill them. It doesn't use those words, but that's what I'm inferring. So deterrence, because if you were deterring somebody, you wouldn't kill them. There would be some other way to, let's just say, convince them not to perform that action, because obviously death is a final convincer. So yeah, it seems clear to me, or reasonably clear to me, that the punishment for lesbianism is far less, if we consider death being the ultimate punishment, far less than traditional homosexuality between two men.
I mean, if we talk about lesbian evolutionary reasons, like this I have no clue of. Like, what's the evolutionary reason for lesbianism? Because that's seemed to be a very stupid thing, evolutionary biology. I don't know how to comment. That the only thing is that a woman can be fertilized without consent, so to speak. So maybe it is just a mistake.
From a man that she's not engaged in a relationship with.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, but I can't. That is, I think, is harder to see the evolutionary benefits, because the female womb is very expensive from an evolutionary point of view. That is why, for example, like men engage in more risk behavior and so on. One of the reasons is because women should not engage in the risk behaviors, because one male can fertilize many females, and if the females die, it's a problem. But one thing, there are several studies that shows that, for example, heterosexual women can be maybe not consciously, but at least unconsciously sexually stimulated by looking at other naked women, which is kind of weird. And you don't see this same pattern in heterosexual men, like with vice versa, with naked men. So there are some weird patterns. So
yeah, it might not be evolutionary though. It might be a societal benefit. There might be a psychological benefit, which in some way, which we are not yet, not yet able to quantify, has some kind of. I'm not sure if that's the case. I'm speculating, but not everything is just evolutionary. I don't think so. We can't just use that as our only sort of yardstick to measure things, because if you have
But I mean, like, for it to it's kind of weird that it has survived. Why has lesbianism survived from an evolutionary point of view? Because from like first glance, you might think that is very stupid.
Well, no, not necessarily. If a woman, for some reason, is not attracted to a man, but she wants to have, some kind of a better life, and she feels herself attracted to another woman, there could be an argument. I'm not saying there is, but there could be an argument for her being attracted to another woman, and the two of them then having a more beneficial life, which in some way benefits the wider community, than her being sad at home with her cats, for example, or whatever it might be. She now has a partner that she feels love for in whatever way that is, and that in itself has some kind of a benefit to society. Maybe they do more charity, maybe they help other children, they babysit, whatever it might be. So I think there's a lot more to it. I don't know if there's any studies, but I would be tempted not just to look at the evolutionary side and say, is there an evolutionary benefit? There could be, and obviously that's very powerful if there is, but I don't think that's the only reason.
Anyway, but if anyone in the chat or something has read about this, how frequent is lesbianism, and what could the evolutionary reasons for that be? Because I think that's harder not to
it could
break.
be, just on the chat there. So again, please, for all of us who are non-believers, please extend some courtesy. You may vehemently disagree with some of our Muslim visitors, our commenters, etc. But what I would like for all of us to do, both Muslim and non-Muslim, but certainly the non-believers, do treat them with respect. You can disagree, you can disrespect the ideas, please don't disrespect the person. ad hominems are not useful. I don't think it's very useful for us. We can say it's crappy ideas, but please avoid, a personal attack against somebody. That isn't useful in any way, and it doesn't reflect well. So please avoid that. If we want to have more visitors of,
Yeah.
the Muslim persuasion,
Yeah,
then telling them how stupid they are is not going to be helpful.
Yeah, especially like we are all atheists and so on, but think like the few Muslims that come on here, that need some kind of courage. So you have to give them that. You shouldn't, especially the Muslims, guy, don't insult them and things like that, even if you become angry or irritated, annoyed.
Yeah, what we
Because
really, the reason we
appreciate
hear
that there are Muslims here at all, so we appreciate
yeah,
that.
part of the reason we are here is obviously to discuss Islam, but what we don't want it to be is an echo chamber. So we want to hear the conflicting ideas, whether we agree with them or not, and we bring, our reasons, and hopefully we've got strong reasons, or they can bring their reasons. Whoever has the stronger reason, in theory, that person would prevail. But I do think, we want to hear the views. We may think we've heard everything. We probably haven't. And, if I was in a Muslim channel, I would hope that Muslims would at least treat me with respect. They could tell me how crap my ideas are. I don't feel offended. But I think sharing the ideas, and then we can seem to produce our evidence if we have it, one way or the other. Okay, moving on. I don't want to harp onto that. But obviously, I want more Muslims to be on here. I want people to join us in the actual hangout itself, so they can share their views, and we will be as courteous as we can be. And I will do my best to moderate that as well. It's much more difficult in the chat because obviously I'm talking, so I can't always see the chat.
Yeah.
But that's what we're looking for. And again, if you are a Muslim watching and you know of any shows like this where it's predominantly Muslims, then please let us know. And I'm sure some of us would be interested to come over to a Muslim show and share some of our views, answer some of the questions, and to share our worldview and why we think, it's accurate.
And if there's any evolutionary biologists that know more than I do about lesbian homosexuality and the biology and maybe evolution of that, because that is something that I don't quite understand. So I would like to understand that better.
Cool. Good. Anything else from your point of view? I think we have covered and we've stayed on topic.
I have a lot of Qur'an verses and a lot of hadiths. I don't know.
All right, let me see if I can summarize it or get you to narrow it down a little bit. From everything we've said, what additional, how will they benefit us more? Whatever you're going to read, are they?
No. I just prepared it. Maybe you don't want to hear it.
Cool. Well, no, I love the fact that you've been very thorough, which is great. If it's already saying what we've said, then I think we've kind of covered that. If there's something additional to bring, either the Muslim perspective or some punishments or anything like that we haven't already covered, then that could be useful. But I think if it's saying what we've already covered, then I think we've covered that reasonably well. As I say, I would like to have some Muslims on here to give their view and to say what they feel is incorrect from our point of view or whatever the case may be, and then we can discuss that. As I say, one of the things that will commonly come up when we have these sort of discussions about what's right and wrong is we will at some point be asked by our Muslim viewers or discussion partners or whatever the case is, on what basis can we say it's wrong? And then obviously we have to talk about the moral side of it. And we can't just say it's wrong because I feel like it's wrong. Because obviously they would say, yeah, well, I feel like it's right. So we're at an impasse. We need something more than that. So I think for all of us, we need to be clear on a few things just to finish off here. And I think then Abu will have a nice hadith to finish us off for the evening. But I think a couple of things that we as non-believers need to be clear on. One is, what is our, on what basis do we say something is right or wrong? What is our view on the beginning of the universe? Because that's clearly something that comes back to. And why do we think evolution is true? Those are sort of the three big things that I see. No doubt there's other things out there that people can point to. But we do, I think, need to have, reasonably good and concise responses to those sort of things. Whether Muslims feel it's justified or not is a different story. But I think if they ask those questions, like we asked them, they will have their responses. And oftentimes I think when I listen to some of my atheist colleagues in Speaker's Corner in particular, not on here, I would grant that you guys probably know more than that, I see them sort of not entirely sure. So now they're being asked questions, and they kind of are hesitant. It might be because they're new, etc. But I do think those are questions we need to ponder and be quite clear on our point of view so that we can get it across in a concise way. And at least Muslims can understand it. Whether they agree, they probably won't, obviously. But at least we need to be able to, do it in 5 or 10 minutes or less, hopefully, so that they know what our belief is and why we believe it.
Yeah, I'm looking at what hadith I should choose.
Is there any hadith that talks about homosexuality or the punishment or anything that we haven't done?
I don't know which one I should choose. I don't know. This is maybe not exactly by homosexuality, but okay, we can take this one. From Sahih al-Bukhari, narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet ﷺ cursed effeminate men. Those men who are in similitude assume the manners of women, and those women who assume the manners of men. And he said, turn them out of your houses. The Prophet ﷺ turned out such and such man, and Umar turned out such and such woman. Yeah.
Cool. Good, thank you for that. Just a response to Sharif there. Rob, we do not have a great problem with evolution. Sharif, that's something that we could talk about in a future show. What exactly is your position? Because obviously many of the Muslims I speak to reject evolution outright. I do speak to a few Muslims now who are starting to accept more of evolution, where I see them obviously pushing back is on human evolution. So they will accept all sort of animal evolution and even macroevolution, but where they will draw the line is with human evolution. But that could be something that we could do in a further show. So hopefully you will join us again. Thank you for coming on. Thanks to my co-host Abu, and for my our silent partner Stop Spamming, who I think has kind of been busy doing things, but he's been on the mute side there. Thanks to all of you for viewing. And again, please, Sharif and any other Muslim watching, if you share, the link, subscribe to this channel so that you can get notification. It's every Friday at 8 p.m. Obviously, the time will change when we have daylight
UTC.
saving in this country, but UTC remains UTC, which is Coordinated Universal Time. So thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks for all the commenters. Thanks to Abu and Stops. And we will see you next Friday at the same time, 8 p.m. UTC.
Cheers.
Thank you.